I'm Maria Lehman, and I'm really excited today to be talking to you about family research with Stephen Vaughan. Stephen Vaughan could be described as authentic, dynamic, gifted. These are three words that describe the vocalist, songwriter, band leader, director, composer, arranger, instrumentalist, professor, and jazz trumpeter who Stephen Vaughan is. The music of Stephen Vaughan is powerful, deliberate, thought-provoking, and emotionally impacting. His dynamic sound concept, approach to instrumentation, and improvisation is pure genius. His compositions transcend all musical barriers and appeal to an extremely diverse audience in the United States and abroad. As an artist, charismatic and compelling, Stephen Vaughan is truly a legend in the making. And it's been so amazing for me to have, you might say, instrumentalist, qualitative researcher, to have met Stephen Vaughan through my qualitative research classes. And by now, not only have I been able to work with him as a course member in multiple classes, he's also been my teaching assistant in quite a few classes. So people that will interact with us today or with the video in the future might recognize him as their former teaching assistant too. So in his professional researcher work, Stephen Vaughan received his BA in music from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, in jazz improvisation from the University of Michigan, and in his ABD. So the dissertation, I've read all of the drafts of his research participants at the University of Northern Colorado in music education. He's currently in the final stages, and the dissertation will be titled Creative Specialists: Exploring Creativity, Improvisations in Jazz and Music Education. Stephen won first place for the Hutchinson-Lahman Award, Graduate Research Award competition at the University of Northern Colorado in 2021, and his winning oral presentation and film documentary was titled Portrait of Creativity, a Case Study in Jazz Education. And this was really impactful as he was a teaching assistant for the case study course. Stephen's current qualitative writings can be found in my book. So my book is finally coming out. We were laughing about that earlier. Finally, sometime at the end of this month. And he has two really helpful pieces in there helping us think about, we got to get rid of some of these older metaphors like researcher is instrument, and thinking about things like, well, what would it be like if the researcher was like a jazz musician? So we're thinking about what could new metaphors be and what might be a fresh metaphor for you. And then also being an African American researcher researching African Americans. He has two reflections there. And currently he teaches at Mount San Jacinto, did I say that right? College in California. So Stephen, what would you add to your introduction? Anything else that you would say?
No, wow, that's it, it sounds like I should float or something. No, that's no, that's great. Outside of anything else is that I just enjoy life and I love stories. And I think that's what my love for jazz music is, the love of telling stories through my horn, whether I'm singing or such. It's a wonderful happenstance that qualitative research during my doctorate here, it created a lens for all of my storytelling. I have and now I'm just tickled about all of it. Now I'm just really looking forward to continuing on this storytelling process, academic storytelling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what we're going to specifically talk about today then is family research. And then Stephen, I'm hoping after we can call you doctor that you'll revisit us and reflect on this jazz musician and creativity research that you're doing.
Sure,
I think that would be
sure.
awesome. Can you walk me through, Stephen, how you decided to go with the family narrative, and then also tell the viewers what your family narrative ended up being? And in a few minutes here, Stephen's going to run through the presentation.
Sure. My mom and I'm from Belize, Central America. My mom and dad were born there and such, and they would always tell me stories about the country and my people who are there. My mom, toward the end of my grandfather's life, decided to drop everything and go to Belize to take care of him because he had Alzheimer's disease. Now, I didn't grow up, me being in America and him being in Belize, I didn't get to really know him that well, but he was a renowned musician and political figure there. And I've only heard stories from bits and pieces from people. And I heard from my mom how tumultuous and how difficult it was. And I thought it would be a great idea long before the class. It's like, man, I would like to get to know more in depth about him and his situation. But I didn't have the classes behind me. I didn't know exactly how to create a lens for it. But then this came up in class. And it's like, oh, wow. And my mom loves talking anyway. And I love talking. So I gave her something to pour in her memories into. My mom is now 73. And she would reminisce about these things and I would connect. But with this, we really got connected. And it was a slippery slope, but I got through it with the family thing. So I figured that was a greater way to go rather than talking about myself or just kind of some other random thing. This just kind of this is instinctively clicked in me.
Yeah.
And I think it would be cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited that you can be here and do this today. So let's do the screen share now so people can see the slides that you had spent so much time with. Also, I think it will help people globally position the country, that context that you're talking about. And then when you're done talking, we'll talk about family research a little bit more.
Okay, this is the beginning. This is my grandfather. Thankfully, my mom took great pictures while over the 2.5, 3 years she was in Belize. And this is my grandfather. And this is the flag for Belize. And it was a difficult thing for her. A lot of tears happened during the interviews. This is Belize. Belize is over here in orange. Between Mexico, Guatemala, and the Caribbean Sea. There's a very small country here called Belize, Central America. And toward the end of my my project is the background about the elderly and aging. It's very difficult in Belize. First here is 84% of the older population do not earn any employment income. 63% don't receive a pension or benefit. 55% of women receive the pensions. 44% of the men receive pensions. And 34% of all older persons were living in poverty. Belize is not that large. I think Belize has maybe 150,000 to 200,000 people in the whole country. So these numbers are very large. And this is 2010, and I'm not sure what the average is now. But I'll skim through my slides very quickly. This is a picture of my great-great-great-grandfather, who is sitting between my great-great-grandfather and his two brothers, my great-great uncles. And it's just wonderful in this case because I did my family as opposed to doing family research for someone else's family. It was very impactful to me to find out who and how in depth my lineage is. Because me being in America and me being the first generation in America, I had no idea. So I'll just go through this very quickly. This is a picture of my grandfather, very, very young, his mother and my grand uncle, I think, there. He went through a lot of hardship because of racism in Belize because he was dark. It's no different than here. And in Belize, the lighter you are, the more opportunities you get. And he was dark, so he got a lot of the backhand of things. Toward the end of his life with Alzheimer's, you tend to relive things. And from what I was told from my mother is that he would tell this particular story over and over again to whoever he met. It was 10 cents a pound of flour in 2 years, 2.5 years. He was 14 or 15 years old working in the mahogany camps. And he came home and there was no food. So he went and took a pound of flour from the cupboard and sold it to his aunt so that he can buy a plate of food. When he did that, his mother got upset and then sent him away to jail. He just got rid of him. And this is where he went to Listowel Correctional Home. But now the funny thing is that, when one closes the door, another window opens, is that through Listowel, he learned music because it's through the Salvation Army. So there he played tuba and he learned how to read and how to build furniture. And so for that 10 cents in 2.5 years, he got an education. With that education, he built his whole life on it. And here you see him here in his regalia for being in the band. And same thing here. He got into the police force. He was a smaller guy, but because he knew music, they let him in. And through volunteer guards and such, he's played for the Queen of England, for Queen Elizabeth. He played with his band for Princess Margaret. He was a Mason. The governor of Belize, he knew personally. He got into the CIA, and he rose to the assistant superintendent of Belize, with a very prominent position in Belize. Toward his decline, he was like 82, 83, and my mom heard that he was wandering the streets of Belize. And those who knew him let him do what he was doing, but they knew that he was in a decline. So my mom dropped everything she was doing here, sold her home and all her belongings, and moved to Belize to take care of my grandfather. And she took pictures, and he was living in horrible situations with termites and bats and spiders. And my mom was very cushy. She got used to American life, so she went straight into the jungles of Belize. This is my granddad's actual house that he built by hand, because one of the skills he learned in Listowel was how to build furniture and how to build houses. So he built his house, and that's his land. As dementia continued, he would wander, and he'd have to lose balance and not eat. And it was heading toward the end. It was very difficult for my mom. They put him in a home, and my mom was totally outraged, and she cleaned him up and took care of all of his finances and stuff. And he died on her birthday. On her birthday, she was getting ready to go out, but she wanted to make sure she checked on granddad, and she got a call, and he passed away. And she took care of everything, and from getting in bed with him after he passed, and wrapping him and preparing him for burial and such. The whole town shut down basically, and I had a funeral march for my grandfather. And there in Belize, they still have the crypts above ground, like, because again it's so close to the water. And the Masons took over, and they did a special ceremony for him, and sent him along his way. His students, he taught music, rose in prominence in Belize, from the Minister of Foreign Ministry, Wilfred Peter Arrington, close friend of the family of his, and these others who are here, who are prominent in Belize. Belize is small, so his impact was quite large. And this is my mom, Sandra Salome Louise Anderson Vaughan. She went on at 73 to finish her master's in gerontology and grief and bereavement. And she's looking forward to continuing her education, not giving up. And one of the final quotes of my granddad said, if I sit down on homage, I'm dead. What this means is, if I sit down and I'm not moving, I'm not marching, doing music, I'm going to die. And he felt very strongly about music, strong advocate for music education and creativity. And he spent his whole life around building and helping young men and women in Belize. And that's basically it. That took a lot of time, a lot of going through the tears with my mom. And that's one of the hardships about family narrative. Beautiful thing. I was able to connect with her in a visceral way that I couldn't otherwise. I've heard of, but I couldn't otherwise. But you have to be prepared for triggers and to give them time and space. Sometimes when my mom we talk about it, and she would need a few days to come back to me, because she just can't, it hurts too much. And I have to give her that room and not be so academic about it. It's like, look, outcome. I need you to answer these questions. Otherwise, I can't get my grade, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is a living thing, and I think that's the beauty of it. You're reflecting on something that was real, minimally to the participant. The reality is based upon that person who's perceiving it. You're getting that person's view of reality.
Yeah.
So there it is. Any other?
Remind me, when you initially contacted your mother, sometimes people will say family isn't enthusiastic, or they are, or so what was her initial reaction?
Oh, she was enthusiastic because, again, my mom loves talking about herself and talking about the subject because she's really a proponent for my granddad. She loves him, and she really wants his story to be told, but no one's picked up the mantle or to do it. And it so happens that I had the time, and I opened up a Pandora's box of things for her, which was wonderful, which was overwhelming for me because I have things to work on for the next 25 years, because of opening this up. But it was a beautiful thing overall.
Yeah, and that was what was so encouraging about this. You may remember in class, I always present a paper I wrote for a conference with two former students. All three of us were doing parent research, and the one student's mom was very reluctant. I would say, frankly, only participated, as you said, because the student said, well, it's for an assignment. The one person's mom was really into the assignment, like you said, like your mother. And then my mom was always supportive of anything I do. But when I went and actually presented the paper to her, because the interesting piece of this is we all three had very different outcomes. So I wrote almost like an autoethnographic essay, if you will, but more about mom. The other person, Dr. Randy Larkins, he took one of the stories she told, and made it into a whole picture book, and his daughter-in-law illustrated it. It was really sweet. And the person whose mom was reluctant, they were both very high-level quilters. So she actually made one of those small quilts that you can hang on a wall, and each of the squares represented someone that was in her mom's narrative stories, like the mom's brother, her uncle, that kind of thing. It was really incredible. And just when I took it to mom to see her piece, she and dad just sat there and nitpicked over, well, that didn't happen then, that happened here, to the extent that I finally actually just left the room, and they were still kind of quibbling about what happened where and who happened wherever. And what was interesting, Stephen, maybe like 6 months later, mom said, well, what have you ever done with that paper? And I said, well, I mean, what can I do with it? You all were really uncertain. And she said, no, I kept thinking about it. And my friend said to me, so I'm sure she was complaining to her friend. Her friend said to her, Maria, she said, Anna Catherine, this is Maria's story about you. This is not your story about you. And mom was able to kind of sit with that and resolve that. So I did try and publish it then. And I cannot tell you how many journals we tried to publish it at. And I actually got the best rejection I've ever gotten, where the journal editor said, this is one of the best papers we've received this year. However, our readership does not have interest in family research. And so rejected. Isn't that interesting? I was just so shocked.
That's I'm understanding more. I'm doing this. I'm understanding there's a particular misunderstanding that a story of a person's life is not scientific, or it's not quantitative enough to say that this is science, or this has a certain value, a societal value. What I'm finding is that it's a universe in a story. All the elements you need is within a person's life. It's like a seed, where the universe of whatever that seed is in it, and it looks like a small thing that it doesn't matter in a field, but every seed is important if you take the time to look at it without the bias of saying, oh, it's just a seed. And it's not that the seed is insignificant, it's that our initial processing thought is insignificant. We're making it seem that way. So the power of and when you're talking about with your mom and dad being nitpicky about it, I'm gonna switch over to that real quick. My mom did the same thing. She did the same thing about not only that, but her speech,
Mhm.
how she talks and how she presents things, and not wanting to seem like she's stupid or something, or
Yeah.
that she can't talk, or and I don't want to put her in that, like, I know from talking to her, and I see the, here again, back to the seed, the value. I understand my mom's speech and why it's that way, but now it's up to me to create a story where I can be clear to my reader that she is very intelligent and she's very loving and she's creating, and this is a part of her
Yes.
life. And that's my job. And I felt very critical about that, that how can I be as transparent as possible, not only in what I'm saying, but within myself, just to get out the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It could be a very effective mirror and a very effective shield, windshield, like a driving, like the wind coming at you, and you have your driving windshield. That the windshield is important against what's coming against you, and so that you can see outside. You know, my job is to take care of my mom, be aware of the reader, and to be effective, because an opaque windshield doesn't work. You can't
Yes.
see through it.
Yeah.
You know, that's called something else. It's called a blind.
Well, and I think you hit on a huge issue in narrative research, and that's how do we represent the way people talk? And so for myself as a Southern United States person, you might write down that I said going to, but I most likely said gonna. And so I saw that in your grandpa's local English.
Mhm.
And so while we want to honor that as a narrative researcher, there is no doubt, one of my first big narrative studies, we were asked to by a group of retired African Americans to conduct research with them. They wanted us to chronicle their lives because some of their members were getting up into their 80s and such. And so we were asked to standardize English somewhat because we know that the African American community knows that people look down on them for using local versions of English.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about that because it's hard to like. How did you honor your mom's request, or did you use the way she spoke? Because obviously she's a highly educated person. I am too, and I still sound like wanna gonna.
My mom will break down into, I'll back up two steps. Because my participant was my mother, and I've known her all my life, there are subtexts that I read that I wouldn't be able to maybe if I didn't know her so intimately.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I can read her not more than just her words, but her intentions.
Yes.
I know what she's going to say because I've had 52, 53 years of talking with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll say one thing, but I know what she's getting at,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, so I can know right what she's getting at. And I make sure, and reflexivity wise, say, hey mom, is this what you mean? And she's like, yeah. And as a matter of fact, she'll ask me, why did you even ask that question? Because you know what I'm saying. You know, that kind of thing. So between my instinct and my relationship and the lens that I'm using through portraiture, and this idea of the Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot idea of portraiture,
Mm-hmm.
with, to make sure that I'm a good representative for all of it at the exact same time, because again, the story is about my grandfather. I want to make sure that his idea is okay, because that's a powerful thing to be an author to someone's image or idea, especially posthumous, and because he already has one. But to put a lens on it, no one's done it, and it has real life implications.
Mm-hmm.
It's real life implications. If I do something out the way, this can affect people and policy in Belize. That, you know, that's a heavy thing.
Yes, yes.
You know, so I want to be able to be as clear as possible and member check and check my sources
Mm-hmm.
and know that this is my mom's experience, but this is my experience from talking with my mother and taking these
Exactly.
to create a narrative,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a narrative for the viewer or the listener or the reader to understand.
And one thing I tried was I made just a little footnote that said the research participant asked me to correct or not edit the quotes for standard English or something like that. So you could kind of have both because some people really think about like see here that I heard myself say kind of instead of kind of.
Mhm.
But I think it's always just this transparency to the actual consumer of our research or the process that you and your mom went through to what you came to. So
Mhm.
Did anything happen as you were interviewing your mom or working with the transcripts that was unexpected to you, something that you didn't anticipate?
Well, there's some things I did anticipate, but I didn't know to what length it would actually come across.
Okay.
It is my emotional connectivity to my grandfather.
Mm,
Sadly, I he knew of me, I knew of him, but I didn't know him like in a day-to-day way growing up or anything like that.
hmm
But from writing this story, I felt I don't know how to explain it, a deep resonance within myself, creatively, and I don't know if you can go to genealogically, something in the core of me, whatever I am,
hmm
began to resonate. That this is a part of, he is a part of me. There's a door that was opened that I wouldn't have been able to ignite without this, without going through this. I've been changed because of it. And I helped to share the good news with my rest of my family. I started saying, look at where we came from. Look at this thing. And then they felt that resonance too, surprisingly, and I'm wondering about immigrants in general who leave their people behind, you
hmm
know, to when you go back and you say, wow, I had a home and there's a flag in that, but I come from something other than my skin color and my size or my height or my weight or the American construct that shapes me into who I am, that kind of thing. There's a different construct.
hmm
I think that is a propelling agent toward change within myself, whether the construct likes it or not. I then feel good about myself. I feel proud. I feel valued. That there, as a person in my line who's done wonderful things through terrible atrocities, and my mother was willing to sacrifice to take care of this person who he had his issues. Humans are humans, men are men, women are women, especially in Belize. That's a whole nother line of conversation and research.
hmm
But I was able to find myself, a reflection of myself within the narrative process and the research process. It became a mirror that I can see myself. And not everybody is cool with that. And not every researcher is cool with that. As to be able to see yourself so naked
hmm
and to help the participants see themselves nakedly too. They may
hmm
not like that either.
Yeah.
You and may balk, but I this was my mom. So I
Yeah.
was able to finagle and to,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense. That
Yeah.
was illuminating.
It does. And I think that that is the huge power of narrative types of research. They're so relational. We get this metaphorical transparency that is like being naked. Your soul becomes completely vulnerable. I loved hearing, and that's what we would hope, but it doesn't always happen. I loved hearing how you were able to create this bond with a figure from your family that you didn't technically know at this level. That's really incredible. It's really
First
cool.
picture is like the picture of my great 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 grandfather, to the point to where I asked my mom, what's his name? She's like, I don't know. I have to ask somebody in Belize who might remember.
Yeah,
No one
yeah.
remembers his name. It's so far. And there's a picture. I think that's amazing.
Hmm.
Here again, me coming from an immigrant family where there aren't any pictures of my granddad, let alone my great great granddad and his uncles and his people,
Yeah.
on the walls. Um, I think this is how you create civilization. This is how you construct reality, that we've lost, and we've given it to Universal Studios, Miramax, movies, television, other series, to create this idea of story for the community, our communal story that's supposed to help us apply the proverbs of what's not to do and what to do.
Hmm.
Now you're investing in yourself and in a real community. Powerful thing. And this I realized the power of this, the power of narrative. Uh, I'm surprised that this hasn't had a more prominent um, point within academia. Honestly, I'm
Hmm.
really surprised. This is very powerful.
Yeah. I love hearing you say that, and I think the research study really is an exceptional exemplar of that also. The question I have for you is, so let's say someone gets inspired and they're like, I would really like to do family research. Do you have some kind of tips, if you will, or suggestions when they embark on this research?
Yes. First of all, go ahead and do it. And first of all, and second of all, be prepared for a lot of twists and turns. I know that we'll have our science goggles on, our qualitative science goggles, and we have our methodology together. We have this line of questioning that we want to make sure that we hit because we want to be correct. We're taught this dichotomy between right and wrong. Stories don't run that way. There is no right or wrong, and nor is it chronological. It's very emotional more times than not, and you have to understand feelings and ideas as O's and ones. An emotion or a feeling or a way they said something is filled with information. Now, you may not understand that and you have to dig in deeper, but don't be afraid of digging in. And like anything else, it's like going undercover. You can get lost in it. You can go so deep that you get lost. So the tether is to make sure that you remember your questions, why you're doing it, and that eventually that you're going to have to end it. You're going to have to, because again, you can have that the kite and the rope, and you give up so much rope that you can lose the kite, or you may even fly away. Who knows? But be careful and allow a person to talk, and just have your head on a swivel for new ideas and new things that you didn't think of, because people are, whether they know it or not, people are awfully interesting, even if they think that they're boring, and they may say some interesting things that can spark other ideas. And don't be afraid to run after them. Chase those ideas down, because there's a whole other door that you may not have seen that didn't fit your rubric. You create a whole new thing, and to me, that makes my tail wag. That gets me excited. I think people are interesting, and it's the same like jazz improvisation. You can't get so caught up with the chords. You can't get so caught up with, I have to play jazz. I have to do a 3-6-2-5-1, otherwise I'm incorrect. That's academic jazz. That's algorithmic jazz. Jazz is not free like that. You're putting jazz in a bind, in a vice, just to be right. It's more fun to listen to the group, and they say something cool, and you respond something cool. Oh, this is me playing trumpet, by the way. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. And then they play something else that's cool. And you might just whatever you were thinking, just let it go and let the group, let it happen, and let creativity take part in it. So I would say I'm from a creative background. So don't forget to be creative. Allow it to be what it is, instead of trying to force it into something because academia is saying, if you don't follow the rubric, if you don't follow this thing, then it's going to be wrong. Dun, dun, dun. You're going to fail. Oh no, because that kind of thing. Just have fun with it, and people are interesting.
Hey, so you have an awesome question in the chat. It was from the scholar I was just referencing, and I think you're really getting at one of the core issues in family research and also any kind of narrative research. So Dr. Arabia Oseatoto is asking, how do you navigate vulnerability in family research? Okay, so we have that. But particularly, so they share a story with you, but it's also about other family members who are not necessarily collaborators in the study. Maybe they won't even be in the study. And so one thing we have in family research is your mom is completely identifiable by the role she holds. So it's an area where everybody knows each other. So how do you navigate vulnerability in that area?
Oh, the family dynamics, right? Okay, we can go from macro to micro. You can go from like the gods, Egyptian gods to Norse gods, whatever gods. It's family. Right. All of these great stories have family issues, Greek stories of Zeus and such. Humans do human things. It's going to be family issues. I talked to my mom about this. Then there's Aunt so-and-so that says, well, what do you mean that he wasn't that way? And then Uncle so-and-so was saying, well, I was there and I don't remember any of this. And you shouldn't write about this. You write about that. And then we didn't tell cousin so-and-so because you're going to be mad.
Uh-huh.
about this thing because, and it's like, and then here's my mom, then if this gets out in Belize, right? So the real life implication that
Mhm.
I didn't do these other things. And so I was in the middle of it, of looking at all of it, looking around. It's like,
Yes.
I just opened Pandora's box,
Mhm.
but then I had to say, okay, I have my questions. And I want to have to politely say, this isn't your turn. This is not your turn. This is I'm doing for a class qualitative research about my mom and my granddad's experience
Mhm.
from her point of view. He's deceased. He can't talk about it. So maybe I can give you a turn. You can add certain amounts, but right now I have to limit my participants. I have to limit my bandwidth because it's just a lot of information. What they're going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and lovingly, kindly say, not right now. I accept your information, I will use it as an idea toward what I'm doing, but I'm doing this. My next thing I'm going to do might involve this, and then I can add you because I respect your information. But lovingly, kindly, just cool your jets, hold your horses. This is just a semester of me working
Yes.
this idea. This isn't the end of the world because family will blow things up like scandal. It's a scandal. I
I'm
want
just
to
really getting a sense of some family reunion conversations when certain topics should be avoided.
exactly
Yeah.
if you show up to the reunion because you might not
Mhm.
even go now
Mhm.
because of simple things that
Yeah.
create
Yeah.
issues. You walk into a room, there's ice in the room, just stairs and no one's breathing and such. These type of inquiries can incite these Hatfield and McCoy type of things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, so love,
And
if
oh yes, sorry, I cut over you. Love, absolutely.
uh, Araba, did I say
Mhm.
the name right?
Yeah, Dr. Areba.
Dr. Araba.
Yeah.
The best thing that I can offer is be loving, be kind, be considerate, and know that these are humans and these are hearts,
Mhm.
and they want to be heard. And the reason why they may have be um, at you or whatever is because they weren't heard at some point, and they see you with big ears, and it's like, let me tell you, please let me tell you, and just we'll give them their time if you choose to.
A lovely one. I use a textbook by Yao. I'll try and circle back and put it in there. And someone said, one of the uncles said, "Well, are you going to pay me for this?" Because they were feeling like, as an academic, the person was going to get all this money for the story. Because
Mhm.
people are always so shocked that we do not get paid to publish our journal articles. They don't understand about the payment through the salary you get at your institution. It's very convoluted. And so the niece is like, no, I wasn't going to pay you. And so they had to have this whole kind of discussion. So you never know what's going to happen there. I also want to make sure you saw your colleague Ivan Blunt said that's extremely interesting considering the foundation of research deals with people. I'm sure he's reflecting on your comment on why isn't narrative inquiry seen more in higher ed? And he says, we're not inanimate objects. I think that's such an important piece. Now, Stephen, I know you've had to really move away from this work so you could focus on your dissertation and your personal work. But I'm hoping that you have kind of an idea of how you could curate this for your family or share it to make sure that your siblings' family can access it also. What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, definitely. As because I didn't have a chance to show this in research evening because I got sick
Mhm.
so much. And once I had it, I realized that my mom would talk about these stories to my people, but it hadn't really been organized where I sat with my mom for, I don't know, 20 hours or so of interview data and curate the lineage of the pictures and have my
Mhm.
mom like talk to me about what each picture meant and where to put them and to create a line from beginning, middle, and end that someone can then digest and it can be a part of them. Once I did that to where I felt it was pretty good, I can remember some kind of like genealogical member checking, I suppose.
Mhm.
Oh, and just I gave it to my family, and especially the younger. Those my nieces and nephews, they're blown away by it, or they just didn't know, because maybe my mom may have hinted at it, but never really explained it in the way that I explained it. So for that, I think that's very important for the growth and the fertile ground of my own Vaughan Anderson line. I think for that has been really cool, and I hope that, and I haven't done much with it since then. Because
I didn't even know that, Larry. That is incredible to hear. And so I think if you are able to present this or write this somewhere, add that whole layer of the younger members of the family, because I hear reflected in that how your relationship resonated with your grandpa, and then their relationship resonated through the older generation also. That's so powerful.
yes, one of the older or oldest males in my line.
Mhm.
Because my uncles, most of my uncles and aunts are passed on, and there's one other uncle who's older than me by about 15 years. But outside of that, I admit, and my family looks to me, and I forget because I get
Yeah.
in my world. But then when I present something, they're like, "Oh wow, Uncle
Yeah.
Steph did this, or so and so did that." It's like, man, they take it to heart, and I have that responsibility. That's the power of narrative speech. That's the power of narrative inquiry or writing in this way. Don't leave your family's history to the public. Don't leave the Black experience to television, to Martin Lawrence or actors or writers or these other ideas that we grew up with in the 80s, watching television that has
Mhm.
this story of how you're supposed to be. If you can, write the story of your people. You don't leave it in the hands of people who don't honor you, or who want to quantify your existence because it meets their bottom line.
Mhm.
It's easier to say humans do this and Black people do that, or white people do that, or women do that. If you can, take part in your own salvation and your own existence. And I was able to feel like I can do that.
Mhm.
You
So
know.
powerful. So powerful. So before we get ready to stop here, I just want to remind you that the number one tip Stephen got is said is just go do it. And so this is an area that research ethics boards don't cover. You're allowed to interview your family, video record them, whatever. Obviously, as a courtesy, I would tell them you're doing that and how you're curating that. Maybe you're keeping it in the cloud or something like that, just so the family can access it. And the reason I strongly suggest you do this, if you're able to, is at any given time, we know that people do pass regardless of age, that type of thing. And then with them, these incredibly powerful stories go also. We can still access, for example, Stefan's grandpa through the mom. So it's not like it's gone forever. But I would suggest if you have any of this in your mind to go ahead and do it the next time you have a little time, because the dissertation experience kind of freezes us like that's all we're doing. And so I heard that when you reflected that you'll forget sometimes about your role with your nieces and nephews. And I can guarantee you it's the focus on the dissertation. It's the only thing we're doing. And it doesn't have the right to do that to us. We don't want to emerge years later and like in some kind of Rip Van Winkle, like what's going on out here? Where is everybody? So stay in relationship as much as you can. All right, so let's end by telling us, what are you currently working on? I probably assume it's something dissertation-wise, in qualitative research. What are kind of the next steps for you?
Next steps for me is my health. The next steps for me is like I just got out of the hospital for congestive heart failure, maybe like 6 weeks ago, 5, 6 weeks ago. And it's I can't blame the degree. It was a pre-existing thing, but the being in the degree process doesn't help with your health. Anyone who's gotten a doctorate or a study degree knows that you'll forget to do a lot of things like taking care of yourself. And as I said, I sacrificed my body on the altar of academia for 6 years, and I'm paying a high price for it, and without knowing what the outcome is going to be. Like you were saying about these articles that people assume that you're making these big money because you're writing these big articles and you're making nothing. To me, that's like going to the jam session, where you're playing.
Yeah.
and you're hanging out with all these great guys, you're not getting paid anything for it. It's just the experience and the notoriety of being around this person and getting street cred and getting like street value. So this is a part of the street value process in academia for me, that kind of thing. But if I'm not alive, I can't experience any of it. So the big thing for me is my health. Next is a part of my health is getting back doing more playing. I have to remember why I chose music in the first place. This academic thing could be all consuming, and you don't realize it until in my case where I haven't picked up my trumpet in 3 weeks. And it's because my brain hasn't, either I've been too tired, but then I forget why I'm doing it. I love people. I love playing. So I want to touch that again. I want to get back out and play more and get back to the reason qualitatively why there was a connection in the first place. And then after that is finishing the dissertation, which we'll talk a little bit later.
Yes.
I'm in the final chapter now. I'm in chapter 5.
Yay.
I got cleared through 4 pretty much.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that because thankfully Maria is on my committee. So I have a lot of loving kindness there for me. And that's basically it. That's a lot, I think.
Yeah. Hey, we just got another question for you, and it's super cool. Dr. Reba's watching with her 9-year-old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he says, should you still share your story, these narratives, if there's a lot of negative incidences through the stories?
I would say for authenticity, yes. If that's the line of questioning that falls in as to why you're talking with this person and you want their authentic experience, then you word it in such a way of knowing your audience. If you're talking about a very hard situation like let's say suicide or drug abuse or something like that, you have to figure who are you talking to. Once you get this information, if it's for something clinical where they want an exact play-by-play, and then you can then provide sources to support why these words are important or these ideas are important, then by all means do it, because then you're going to aid the process of healing and understanding it. If you're trying to tell suicide to, let's say, I'm staying on that idea, hardship, to someone who's in middle school or high school, you may not need as much. You might use more metaphors, lighten it up a bit, but still have the kernel of truth within it, delivering the message, as it were. It may be through parables or through the actual clarity of this is what actually happened. But honestly, if you can produce the words to create the idea and resonance of the story, that's your artistry as a writer. That's your artistry as a researcher, so that you can be as clear as you need to be and be as honest as you can be for the participant, yourself, and the reader, because hopefully you'll have a reader or 2 or 3.
Yeah, and your emphasis of the word healing made me think about, in family research, families may have what we think of as a metaphorical skeleton in the closet. So it's these hidden stories. People do tend to kind of know about them. Sometimes it's very hidden. In the southern United States, we say, don't air your dirty laundry. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to respect your family by not telling people about this. But family research would say, if you harbor negative stories, that they can become this kind of wound that doesn't heal. And so the very process of storytelling allows us to heal. It's one of the really healing ways when we relate to other people, talking about sad things that happen to us. Now, as a researcher, I agree. If we're going to publish something, the power of publication today is easily accessible through the internet. And so we can, of course, provide anonymity, somewhat a confidentiality through using a fake name. And that made me think, in some of my mom's work, she had many brothers. So maybe this isn't the fairest way, but I'll just say uncle rather than say, like, call out an uncle something specifically negative, because they won't agree on the perspective anyways. So I try and make it more like, well, who was that? Which is maybe not fair to all her brothers. or you could completely write a piece. I've seen it done where they don't necessarily say it's their own mom or such, which is unfortunate. It loses some of its richness, but some secrets can be really damaging contemporarily, and we don't want that, of course. So that's such a good question. Thank you so much. So, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Oh, no. It's just great that you have your a 9-year-old son hanging out, listening to qualitative research and such. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
really,
headed to be a future academic, huh?
yeah. No, hats off, and
Yeah.
just keep asking questions. Just
Mhm,
keep asking
mhm.
questions, and being loving kindness is as your guide. Use loving kindness as your guide, and you'll
Yes.
be okay.
I want to just summarize the whole thing with your earlier comment where you said, I can hear the universe in a story. And so I think you need to get that in your dissertation so I can quote it like Dr. Stephen Vaughan said that. Please write that down, everyone. Get that in there. It's so lovely. As we're finishing, Carlene is either posting now or in the larger Facebook at some point an upcoming talk towards the end of April on artificial intelligence and how we can use it to help ourselves as qualitative researchers. One thing it's doing is allowing us to access different supports that aren't as expensive through the analyses process, for example. So I hope people can join us for that session. And then very early May, Carlene and I are going to do a book celebration for my book, which finally I think's out. I saw a message from Sage as I entered the Zoom saying they wanted me to do a couple things this evening because they were hoping the e-version would go out on Tuesday. So that's what I'm going to be doing directly after this. So we will circle back into the chat for people that view later if you have any specific questions for Stefan or myself, and I'll try and make sure I drop in Dr. Yao's family research text, which is one of the few full textbooks on the methodology. So, and Stefan, I cannot tell you how happy myself, Carlene, Ivan Blunt, all the people that know you are to have you here, because we did have deep concerns for weeks if we were going to ever be able to talk to you this way again. And so huge virtual hugs to you. So
Thank
good
you
to have
so
you
much.
here. Yeah.
And glad to be able to be of loving service. And I haven't forgotten about you, brother. And for everyone else who's out there, keep writing, keep asking questions, and just do it. It will illuminate you as you go. Surprisingly,
Mhm,
it
mhm.
will illuminate you as you go.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.